How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtual Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your virtual pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we are back to analyze day number 2 of San Francisco 49ers training camp right here on the show. Gonna get into how good was Brock Purdy on the day. Gonna dive into some breakout candidates we saw on the field, including undrafted free agent Isaiah Neyor, and also talk about how phenomenal rookie Mykel Williams looked on day number 2 of practice, and a very unlikely place he got some praise from this afternoon. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Still going for our goal of 100 audio podcast reviews by the time week 1 comes around. So don't forget to go on your Apple or Spotify feed and give us that review on the audio podcasting platforms. But without further ado, let's dive into San Francisco 49ers training camp day 2. And let's start at the top, because this was a more sloppy practice compared to the opening day that was on Wednesday. A lot of false starts from the offensive linemen. There was a bad pitch from Tanner Mordecai to rookie Jordan James. That said, it was a pretty good offensive day nonetheless. A lot of big plays were hit by the offense, including 2 of them, one from Brock Purdy and one of them from Mac Jones, who we'll dive into a little bit later in the show. But I do want to give you some quick hitting news to begin the show. Christian McCaffrey, Nick Bosa, and Trent Williams all did individual drills and also participated in team drills. So a little more work for the veterans on day 2 of training camp. There was in particular one play over the middle where McCaffrey cut back up, and Fred Warner, who was never afraid to have some non-padded contact, gave him a good shoulder, and was more of sending a message and having a little bit of an edge to a non-padded session this early into the training camp process. Warner is and has often targeted Brandon Ayuk in previous seasons. Couldn't do it last year for the contract dispute, and then this year can't do it to be again because of the injury. So he has seemingly found his next target of who he will let out his pent-up aggression during training camp, that being against Christian McCaffrey. Speaking of Christian McCaffrey for 1 second, though, he looks good. I know there was a lot of reports in OTAs and minicamp that said he looked slow and there was no 5th gear, and there just seemed to be some negative reports coming out against him in a rather unceremonious kind of practice. Again, it's OTAs, minicamp. It means practically nothing. That's more to kind of get your feet wet again and reacclimate yourself to playing football. That's for rookies and undrafted guys, and maybe some players that are young and didn't play much in their first year to reestablish themselves, get their feet under them again, and to make those assessments of Christian McCaffrey that early are just dumb. It's just not smart. It just comes across as, if I were to put it, Bush League. That said, Christian McCaffrey looks really good. Now, I'm not going to say 2023 Christian McCaffrey again, but he looks fluid, he looks quick, he looks fast. There may or may not be a 5th gear when it's all said and done, but there certainly is a 3rd and 4th gear still remaining in the former Offensive Player of the Year. So I cannot wait to watch him put pads on and get him back out there if he does play in the preseason. Probably not, but week 1 cannot come soon enough. if CMC can stay healthy, because he does look like his former self in the very short times we've seen him in training camp and the OTA sessions. Lori Matthews in the YouTube chat says, "Hey Sterling, caught you live 2 days in a row." Well, Lori, I'm telling you this now. Every day there is 49ers training camp. We're going to be here live breaking everything down. So stay tuned, and thank you again for joining today's show live on YouTube. And let's dive back into the notes I have from today's practice session. Jacob Cowling obviously hurt himself yesterday, has a hamstring strain. Still don't know exactly how severe that may be, but did not practice today. The team signed Quintez Cephas as a replacement and released running back Israel Abanikanda to make room for him on the roster. There also was some interesting receiver news that happened during practice from Gabe Davis, a veteran wideout who is still a free agent. Him telling Kate Adams that, I would like to play for the San Francisco 49ers, so maybe there is some more moves to be made, but right now it's seemingly just San Francisco signing Quintez Cephas to add to their wide receiver room. Ricky Pearsall, the second-year wideout, continues to work with a trainer, also caught some passes today on the sideline, so it really does seem like Sunday he will be back in the fray and getting live reps with Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, and company with the rest of the offense. A surprising, I don't want to say breakout candidate, but a surprising, pleasant surprise, I guess is the way to word that more so, is Russell Gage, veteran wideout who was with the Falcons a couple years ago, I think with the Buccaneers last year. He has been pretty good. I think he has the most receptions thus far through 2 days, if that matters to you. So he's been pretty active in the early 2 practices they have had. And there was a play today where he went over the middle. He went up for a ball, caught it, came back down, looked stable. He is someone that has often dealt with injuries in his career. Again, going back to his time with the Buccaneers. So if Gage is healthy, he is much more than a simple veteran, fill the roster out kind of guy. There's a good player in Russell Gage somewhere. Maybe that can happen again for him in San Francisco. But so far, again, through 2 days, he's been a pleasant surprise for the San Francisco 49ers. Upton Stout, rookie cornerback who really is in contention to win the nickelback job this summer, I guess fall time, if you will, or at least soon to be fall time. He got some first team reps today as Neyor took some time off during practice to allow Trey Brown to slide outside. Stout came in to play nickelback next to Renardo Green. So you're seeing them move guys around, seeing what works, seeing what sticks, and Trey Brown and Stout continue to be really good in coverage for San Francisco during the off-season programs. Third-round pick Nicholas Martin, rookie linebacker out of Oklahoma State. He also appeared to have forced a fumble on UDFA running back Corey Kiner. Not exactly sure if it counts or if someone's keeping a stat tracker somewhere, but the play may have been blown dead, but Nicholas Martin making a play, getting the ball back for the defense, if you will, in this case. But good signs. You want your young players having their nose around the football. Stout's that way. And at least in this one example, Nicholas Martin was that way as well. Linebacker Dee Winters also continues to get praise from the coaching staff. And even today he talked about in his post-practice press conference that he does not feel the pressure to need to replace Dre Greenlaw. He's not focused on being the next Dre Greenlaw, which I think is a really unfair ask of a player like him going into year 3. The odds are the Niners are not going to find the next Dre Greenlaw. They're hoping to find a really good Dee Winters, and Winters does seem to be focusing on that rather than trying to replace one of the best linebackers of the Kyle Shanahan era, and a guy that this team really relied on to have energy and spark and bring a tenacity to the defense, which you saw last year when he missed the entire season, came back against the Rams. It was an entirely different defense. But it does seem like Winters, although it may not be as physical, he has said he worked on trying to remain healthy in ways to keep his body preserved throughout the entire year. So the hype train certainly is behind Dee Winters thus far. And I am one of the conductors of that train here on the show. We are big Dee Winters fans. The diamond in the rough that is Dee Winters may be turning into a diamond and has kind of found his way out of the rough finally in year 3. I know Robert Saleh talked about Dee Winters and really kind of gushed about him and said that the injuries have kind of held him back in his progression. And I firmly believe that's the case for Dee Winters, where year 1, maybe not so, but certainly in year 2, where he was getting playing time, then he got hurt, then Devondre Campbell took over the job and whatnot, and then Dre Greenlaw came back, and it just felt like that there was a lot of things working against Dee Winters last year. And when he did play, one of the best coverage players in football at the linebacker position. So it's good to see the coaching staff praising him and good to hear that he's doing what it takes to stay healthy and remain on the football field in year number 3. They need him. I know people have high hopes for Nick Martin, and people do like Chaz Surratt, who was signed from the New York Jets during the offseason, and even Tatum Bethune, even Curtis Robinson. There are guys in that room that certainly have higher ceilings than they have shown on the field thus far, but Dee Winters is by far head and shoulders the second best guy in that room, and I think if he can play the entire year or most of it, will prove to be a really good player for San Francisco and Saleh's defense this season. We also got our first sighting of Brandon Ayuk this year. We saw him a little bit during the OTA session, but the first training camp sighting of Brandon Ayuk happened today, and he was chatting things up with Jawan Jennings early in the wide receivers, advising them, if you will. Some may say taking on some captain-like role. Now, I have no idea what he was talking about. Not going to speculate. Could have been talking about shoes, dinner, his girlfriend. I have no idea, but good to see him back out there in street clothes, I might add. But here's the thing. Brandon Ayuk, for all the talking he did during today's training camp sessions with the receivers, actually lined up with the wide receivers during their warm-ups and did a very light jog, mimicking the rep or the route they were running. So it's not a big thing, but we did get our first sighting of Brandon Ayuk actually doing some sort of football activity with the rest of the roster. So good signs there. I don't think he'll be back by week 1, but really good signs to see Brandon Ayuk back on the football field in kind of a way practicing with the team, albeit for a very light, jog-worthy rep that was probably about 25% of his normal speed. So, again, not a big thing, but when you're looking for anything good in regards to Ayuk's recovery, today was a good sign for him to get back on the football field. The media saw him, the fans saw him, we saw him. If you saw on social media, I posted it myself. I think Noah Furtado had the actual video he caught Ayuk live doing the reps. So really good signs there. And honestly, it just makes you excited to see and hope Ayuk can get back sooner than even I expect. Again, my target is November. I think maybe you can get him back around week 8, but I think being more cautious with him may pay off down the road. But a good sign nonetheless to see BA back on the football field because, and I know we often forget this, despite everything that transpired last year during the offseason, the contract stuff, Shorts-gate, the injury, Ayuk is a really good football player. A really good football player. So if he can get healthy and just refine maybe 80% of himself this year, they're going to regain a really good wide receiver in that room who Brock Purdy, when they played together, had a really good chemistry with. So we're hoping him and this really kind of trying to find the good news of the Ayuk recovery process. But I do want to dive into my takeaways. But first,
after Zoomies at the dog park, it's time for Drive Up at Target. In goes a big bag of kibble and one squeaky chicken toy for the good boy. Drive Up that's ready when you are, only in the Target app. Just tap Target.
I want to let you guys know, go to SeatGeek.com and use that promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com, and you can save yourself $20 off your first purchase, whether it is Niner tickets, maybe it's an away game you want to go to, a concert, to maybe spend your remaining weeks of summer at. in the next couple weeks or so. Again, use that promo code and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And let's dive into my takeaways from training camp day number 2. Already got to the small hitting stuff, but I want to get into the big home run hitting conversations we're going to have on today's episode. And we have to start with the quarterback room itself, that being Brock Purdy. Yesterday, Brock threw 2 interceptions, and funny enough, those were in the 2 of his first 3 passes were interceptions. The first pass was a big deep ball to George Kittle. The next 2 passes were interceptions, one to Jason Pinnock and one to Dee Winters. Today was a much more decisive, accurate, and sharp version of Brock Purdy on the football field. He was 13 of 14 today. The lone incompletion was, again, a pass that could have been completed. He just kind of sailed it over a wide open George Kittle and Russell Gage's head over the middle. Fell incomplete. No interceptions on Brock Purdy's box score today if your training camp stat trackers are listening or watching to the show. But Brock Purdy was in tip-top shape and tip-top performance today. His best throw was yet again another deep ball to George Kittle, this time on the right side of the field over Trey Brown. Kittle beat Trey Brown, ran right by him in coverage, and Purdy just right into the breadbasket, boop, right into Kittle's arms, about 20, 30 yards downfield. A good play from quarterback to tight end. Their chemistry, which we already know is great, it looks equally as good the first 2 days of practice. Those guys are, in my opinion, one of the best quarterback and tight end combos in football. Maybe not Mahomes and Kelsey, but right behind them, in my opinion. He really is better than most guys, better than Goff and Laporta, better than Jackson and Andrews and others out there. Purdy and Kittle, I think, really belong in that elite or maybe really good quarterback and tight end tandem because they just have insane chemistry. And although it doesn't show itself often, when it does show itself, you go, wow, how that happened. And today, and even yesterday, 2 big plays from Purdy to George Kittle. One other aspect of Brock Purdy's game that I think we often overlooked last year, and I'm sure it was happening for a variety of reasons, whether Christian McCaffrey wasn't healthy, he didn't trust Jordan Mason or Garendo early on during the year. And Purdy got better with this as the year progressed, probably from seeing and playing with the younger guys much more as the year went on. But Purdy just wasn't taking the checkdowns last year. And although in practice you really don't want to see that happening, I don't mind seeing Brock take a few checkdowns, finding Patrick Taylor, finding Isaac Garendo, finding Jordan James, because Brock and even San Francisco's offense, they can gain on, let's say it's 1st and 10. You go back for a pass, no one's open. Okay, take a check down, get 5 or 6 yards, boom, 2nd and 4, and you put yourself in a really highly manageable spot going into 2nd and 3rd down. That wasn't the case last year for San Francisco a lot of the time. And although a very small sample size thus far through day 2 of training camp, really good to see Brock taking his checkdowns, not forcing passes, although Brock will at times take risks. I don't mind seeing him take his checkdowns, be safe, be smart. Sometimes the best play is simply just given what the defense will offer to you, and I don't mind him doing that. Especially early on in training camp where maybe guys don't have pads on and you're ramping yourself back up to become the San Francisco 49ers once again, and you're building up your reps, building back your arm strength, which has pretty much been there for Brock in the OTAs, minicamp, and training camp sessions. But I think it's a really good sign. Whether it is Christian McCaffrey back there or somebody else, Brock does need to take checkdowns again in 2025. And funny enough, Steve Young, Niner legend, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, he has been pounding the table for Brock Purdy to utilize his legs more often, and in itself isn't a bad thing. But as we saw last year, sometimes Brock can be, or at least last year was, a little too run happy, where yes, the offensive line wasn't great, and there were certainly justifiable reasons for that. Brock was playing a little too much hero ball, too much running around. My mind always goes to the Rams game where he's just running in circles trying to find 1 yard to gain, and in that case he did, but the check down may have been better to utilize at that point in time. That said, yes, you want Brock to use his legs, and I think Brock is okay with that. Brock wants to use his legs, but it shouldn't be the default to the play, right? And Brock has talked about, especially he talked to KBR today, in fact, and talked about, yes, I do want to use my legs. Yes, I want to be an offensive weapon, if you will, but also realizes that I need to start playing point guard again. And I think last year that wasn't what Brock Purdy was doing, and unfortunately, that sentiment may be kind of scoffed at by fans or the media of oh, what do you mean playing point guard? Oh, here comes the system quarterback stuff again. And that's not what Brock means by that. What he simply is saying is that the head coach, Kyle Shanahan, the offensive play caller, is so good that if I simply just play point guard most of the time and get it to guys that are open, whether it's Kittle, whether it is Gage or Quintez Cephas or Robinson, Jennings, Chris McCaffrey, Pearsall, counting the better guys on the roster, if I can do that, then I can find smaller pockets to utilize my legs and even make himself more dangerous. Because if you make, it's like in baseball, right? But more importantly in football in this case, if you can make people scared of the pass, it opens up the run, and vice versa. If you can make folks scared of the run, boom, here comes play action, bang, over the top, touchdown, bing, bang, boom, right? The same thing goes for a quarterback. If you can make the defense scared of the pass, and Brock, who isn't Lamar Jackson, if you will, or isn't Josh Allen, guys who you're always watching for the run, you're going to leave him space to move, and on a pivotal third down, second and long, he'll open some space up, find a hole, then he gets you a first down, or get you into a more manageable third down with his legs. Brock has the ability in him to be a more mobile quarterback, but if you pick and choose your points, you may be more dangerous, but also utilizing your legs less. Yes, Brock creating space, when a play breaks down, all that's great and whatnot, but what you can't do, which is kind of what Brock did last year at points, is become kind of a one-trick pony, or, okay, hike, one read, two read, bang, it's not there, go. That in itself doesn't always work, especially in this offense, that when you have Kyle Shanahan, you have McCaffrey, Kittle, the weapons you have on the field, you are likely going to have some time to go through your progressions. Now, obviously, that is banking on the offensive line doing their job too, but I do think Brock has talked about today with KBR, and even in previous times talked about, I want to get back to who I was my rookie season. And I think Brock really needs to get back to who he was in 2023 when he almost won the MVP. And what I mean by that is that late season stretch by Brock Purdy post-Christmas, where you have the Packers game and the Lions game especially, where yes, Brock is making plays with his arm. Yes, he's scoring touchdowns with his arm. Yes, he's throwing guys open with his arm. He's also finding pockets to run with his legs and opening up space for the rest of the offense, extending drives and whatnot. So I don't want folks to misinterpret Brock saying, I want to play point guard more. I think it's more about sometimes less is more for Brock Purdy when using his legs because the offense is so good. So I really do think that Brock is trying to kind of not reform himself, but more so get back to what worked so well in 2022 and 23. The offense, although not all his fault, didn't work great last year at times because he was utilizing his legs too much, not taking checkdowns, and not playing point guard. So sometimes it's hard to find that perfect marriage between being a mobile quarterback and a passing quarterback. I think Brock wants to find that going into his first year as one of the highest paid quarterbacks in football. Bobo is back in the YouTube comments, and they say Brock has bulked up so he can run like Cap and tackle guys when he throws interceptions. One, I don't want any of my quarterbacks tackling guys unless a touchdown is at risk. You've seen too many guys get hurt, mainly Tua Tagovailoa, your Derek Carrs, your Jared Goffs, your Matthew Staffords. If you throw a pick, usually, like your kickers, get out of the way on returns. But Brock has bulked up, looks bigger, looks stronger. But I think a lot of that for Brock, his bulking up, isn't about running the football. It's about, I got to stay healthy for the full year. He's had 2 arm injuries, a cracked rib. Like, he really, really, really needs to stay healthy. Yes, Mac Jones, who we'll get to in 1 second here, looked pretty good in camp, and I think is a better backup than what they had last season. But you'd rather have Brock be out there than most guys. I think Brock's in a really, like, it's early, but Brock seems to be in a good headspace as to where he wants to be as a player in 2025, which I'm really excited to see. You have the dark horse MVP conversation. I think Brock will have to prove to me he belongs in it, but I would not be shocked at the end of the year if Brock is in that conversation of maybe not the entire season, but there will be a stretch where San Francisco finds their footing and the offense is humming, and we're going to start to hear, well, maybe Brock should be the MVP. May not last the entire year, and obviously Brock has to prove that, but I'm pretty confident in Brock walking into this season, rebounding in a big way for the San Francisco 49ers. Moving along to the quarterback 2, which I feel like I haven't talked about quarterback 2s in training camp outside of the, Joshua Dobbs and, with the Brandon Allen conversation last year. There really wasn't too much credence to it. It was kind of a clear cut. Yeah, Brandon Allen's a quarterback 2. Shanahan likes him better, fits the offense better. Joshua Dobbs is more of a weapon, but more of a kind of a, wild horse, if you will, that Kyle doesn't really love. But now we have Mac Jones, who, funny enough, was the guy Kyle seemingly has always loved, even before Brock Purdy got there. And today was a day where Mac Jones, you could tell why Kyle wanted him with that 3rd overall pick in 2021. And I know you can argue, the rights and wrongs of the Trey Lance stuff, and that's in the past, so whatever. But Kyle has been wanting to acquire Mac Jones since last year, before he was traded from the Patriots to the Jaguars. So they've been trying to connect the last couple of seasons, and at least today, Mac Jones was slanging that thing around the football field. He is equally as precise and dominant as Brock Purdy, albeit, Mac's a somewhat different quarterback. You could argue the archetype for a Kyle Shanahan guy is there at Kirk Cousins and those guys. Mac Jones really is a lighter version than those, and I don't mean by weight, but Jones looked really good today, and it's really good to see maybe a better quarterback 2 behind Brock Purdy in case he goes down, where I've always been pretty confident in Mac Jones, albeit he's had some pretty bad years with the Patriots and the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Mac Jones and the Kyle Shanahan offense just kind of screams somewhat successful. Now, how much, I have no idea, but I do think there is a universe where Purdy goes down for a couple games and San Francisco doesn't just fall by the wayside like last year against the Packers. Now, last year probably isn't a good example of that, but my point is, I think Mac Jones can actually play pretty well with Kyle Shanahan's offense. He had a phenomenal pass today, probably about 50, maybe a little under, maybe a little more than 50 yards downfield to Isaiah Neyor, the UDFA, out of this past year's draft. And I'll tell you what, it was not only a perfect throw, it was high, it was arcing, it was one of those just right, precise at the moment it needed to be there. Neyor goes up in triple coverage with, Dallas Flowers and Jason Pinnock and others around him. Like, it was like, oh my God, that was by far the best throw of training camp and catch of training camp through the first 2 days. It was gorgeous, it was beautiful, and Mac Jones had himself quite the day. And it's really good to see when both your quarterbacks are having a good day, which makes it sound like the defense wasn't good. But I would attest that the defense with younger players on the roster without pads, like, usually the defense is kind of ahead of the offense at times during the early portions of training camp, and once the pads come on, the things kind of even themselves out. But the defense being younger, you expect earlier bumps in training camp. So it's good to see the offense taking advantage of that. And I'm hoping that once pads come on, that'll kind of be the inverse. The defense will get them back and kind of get their look back in the next week or so. And pads come on Monday, so you're hoping that will shift soon. But really good day from the offense. And that's where I want to get to Isaiah Neyor, because the wide receiver room, for as chaotic as it may be right now, is, at least by name value, kind of stacked. Let's just assume, right, everybody's healthy. So you have Brandon Ayuk, that's your 1. Pearsall is your 2. Jennings is your big slot number 3 guy that can go outside at times. You have Demarcus Robinson, that's your 4. You have Cowing, that is your gadget, speedy guy downfield. Then you have a conversation as to, do you want to do Junior Burgeon? You have Jordan Watkins, 4th-round pick this past year, or 5th-round pick this past year, excuse me. 4th, 5th? Mid-round pick, doesn't matter. Then you have your Isaiah Hodgins, your Russell Gages. Like, there's a pretty stacked room. Maybe not the most proven guys, but those first 5, if they're healthy, are making the roster guaranteed. So that 6th spot really is up for grabs. And I think, although I don't believe Neyor will make the roster out of camp, I think he is a cut candidate and a practice squad stash likely kind of player. The prospects of Isaiah Neyor are just tremendous. We talked about during our UDFA breakdowns that the one thing that hindered Neyor during his time in college, he just didn't really have the opportunity to play. Now, a lot of that was because of injury, so you're hoping he can stay healthy and flash a little bit more like he did today on this amazing 50-yard plus catch in triple coverage, because Neyor is a big dude. He's 6'4", 220-ish pounds with 4.4 speed, like the archetype for an NFL kind of player is there. He has the build and the physical skill set like of usually elite wide receivers in the NFL. I just don't know if he can get there, but if he can stay healthy, he's a guy that you got to think somebody, whether it is San Francisco or somebody else, they will take a chance on. He may never come to anything and be anything, but you don't usually want to leave those guys out in the open, on the practice squad, in the dirt for anybody to pick up. So it'll be an interesting decision to see what San Francisco does. Maybe if Ayuk is on IR or the PUP to begin the season, maybe Neyor takes his roster spot, who knows. But if Neyor continues to play this well, he's going to make the Niners' decision-makers' jobs really hard when it comes to cut-down day. Now, of course, there's 3 preseason games to play and whatnot, but, it really comes down to Neyor needs to play. He only had 87 collegiate receptions in 6 seasons. Now, some of that is because he was younger, a freshman, didn't play much, and then grew into his role, then got hurt and transferred. So there's a lot of things that have, come into play with him, but he really just needs to play. He's a big unknown with a higher ceiling than most guys in that room. And so he really is one to watch. And again, the physical tools are there, the traits are there, but it's all about putting it together at the right time. And again, San Francisco's room is really stacked, so I'm not exactly sure where he's where he fits, but Shanahan doesn't mind taking a chance on bigger body wide receivers if they have the traits Neyor has. So I'll be eagerly watching what he does the rest of training camp.
My name is Happy Gilmore. I haven't swung a club in years.
You know what you got to do.
Grip it and rip it.
Or... Oh, now that is some Happy Gilmore.
Everyone is talking about the comeback kid, Happy Gilmore.
Happy knee.
Yeah, baby!
Happy Gilmore 2, only on Netflix July 25th. Rated PG-13, may be inappropriate for children under 13.
We did get an updated starting offensive line during team drills, mainly because Trent Williams is back doing team drills after missing the first day, or choosing not to do them the first day for rest. But it was Trent Williams at left tackle, Nick Zakelj at left guard, so no change at left guard, even with Burford not playing first team left tackle. So a good indication there as to what they think. Jake Brendel still being the starting center, Dominic Pooney and Colton McKivitz being the remainder of the starting offensive linemen. On defense, we did get a change as well because Nick Bosa also did do team drills. So it was Nick Bosa on the defensive line at one edge rusher position, Kevin Givens, Jordan Elliott, again, no Alfred Collins, no CJ West running with the ones. I'm hoping to see that pretty soon, maybe in the next week or so if the pads come on, or when the pads come on. And maybe leading into a preseason game, I think San Francisco would like to have one of those guys at least starting for them this year, mainly Alfred Collins. So I'm hoping one of those guys, probably Elliott, goes back to the bench or working somewhat with the 2s or 3s if Collins can bump himself up on the depth chart, But, so it's Bosa, Givens, Elliott, and then on the opposite side of Nick Bosa, you had Sam Ekwonu, but also Mykel Williams working with the ones. So even with Nick Bosa back in the fray, you had Mykel in there. He was moving inside, moving outside, doing things you want to see. I am a little shocked we haven't seen Bryce Huff with the ones yet. I'm not sure if that's because they view him as a situational guy and don't want to put him out there. Maybe they want to work with him, get him right, get his body right, get his technique right again. I'm not sure exactly what's happening there, but for a guy we are expecting to be this team's preferred and dominant third down pass rusher, not with the ones yet. So not a concern, but something to watch going forward. Linebackers were as they were yesterday: Fred Warner, Dee Winters, and Luke Gifford. No Nicholas Martin, no Bethune, no Surratt just yet. Still Gifford. He was one of their primary signings during the offseason. So that's one, good to see. The money well spent, if you will. But a lot of that comes down to them wanting to see Nicholas Martin play the weak side spot and get more reps there. Then the cornerback spots are still the same. You have Neyor and Green playing the outside. You had Trey Brown and then Upton Stout kind of slotting in there at nickelback, and then Brown going outside. So you are seeing San Francisco, like I already said earlier, moving guys around, seeing what sticks and works out for them. Then the safety position. This is where it gets interesting because, yes, Malik Mustafa is injured. He's probably not going to be back by week 1. Hopefully that changes, but that's kind of the odds. He'll not be back by week 1. But they have Jason Pinnock starting for them, and you have Jair Brown. But even today, you're starting to see them work more guys into the first team safety position with the reps, with Richie Grant starting in and playing a little bit of free safety next to Pinnock and Jair Brown at times. And I was a little shocked, but not completely surprised by what Robert Saleh said in his post-practice press conference. One, it's great to have Robert Saleh back in the building. I am no longer watching it on TV or in the media room just like, oh my God, we had Nick Sorensen. Oh my God, this guy has no idea what he's doing. Oh my God, we are in terrible hands. There is so much more confidence in a coach and a person like Saleh to lead your charge, be out there with the guys, and actually coach these guys up and put every single one of these players in the right place at the right time. Sorensen was terrible, and I mean terrible, at setting guys up for success. Saleh can do that for these guys, and I think you're going to see San Francisco's defense look much better this year than it was last season. But the main reason I bring up his post-practice press conference is because Saleh talked about the safeties, and I think many of our assumptions are Mustafa's job is safe, but Saleh said both safety jobs are up for grabs. Again, my assumption is that if Mustafa was healthy, that probably wouldn't be the case. I think he is the future at the position for San Francisco. I've said that back since last year when he got drafted, the day he got drafted. But I think it's a clear indication that Jair Brown, his job is not safe. Now, really good year 1, really bad in year number 2. So he was already coming in not really having a position locked up, so that's good to hear. They want to breed competition. I think San Francisco really isn't in a spot to guarantee guys jobs unless their names are Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Neyor, and maybe somebody along those lines, but they really don't have anybody else. Maybe Renardo Green or Mustafa himself, but other than that, we're going to work this thing out and see who wins jobs. Maybe the best man win kind of play, and you want to hear that because San Francisco spent a lot of free agent capital, not money-wise, but as body-wise, on safeties. Pinnock, Grant, you brought in Siren Neal. He can also play safety. Drafted Marquis Siegel. You can tell they wanted to insulate themselves, one, but also they realized that, hey, we may not have the answer. Brown was terrible, borderline unplayable last year. So it was shocking to hear Saleh say both jobs were up for grabs, but I would assume Mustafa being back would change that. However, you can just tell the pressure is being put on Jair Brown to perform, and for his sake, being a third-round pick, and even for San Francisco's sake, let's not make 2023 one of the worst drafts ever for San Francisco, and Latu and Brown and Moody. But this is a big year for Jair Brown. He's on the cusp of walking into a contract year next season, and if he doesn't play well, the money tied to him isn't big enough to keep him around if he isn't good. So this is a really big year for him. I hope he can bounce back. But you see Richie Grant, you see Jason Pinnock, you see the draft pick of Marquis Siegel. Man, it is almost a race to the finish to see who can clinch a safety job first. My assumption is you're going to see all three of those guys, all four of those guys, five of those guys out there during preseason. This is a marquee matchup to watch. Maybe not name-wise, but again, safety is really important for San Francisco. You have to have guys that don't get beat over the top because Saleh wants to get after quarterbacks, wants the stunts and blitz at times, and just wants to let his guys go off the rip and say, go get him, boys. Utilizing the wide nine. So this team and the system really misses Jimmy Ward. I think that's a reason why they signed Richie Grant and Pinnock and even drafted Siegel. So they are starting to kind of, I don't want to say rekindle, but they're starting to, push themselves back into what used to work. And I think Jair Brown may not be part of that going forward. I think they wanted Brown to replace Mustafa, wanted Brown to replace Hufanga. Then Mustafa was there. He's a better player overall. Draft him. And it kind of left Brown out in the open of what do I do? Granted, he gave them some confidence going into year two, but that's completely gone. New DC, a new special teams coordinator, a whole new safety room minus Mustafa. This team really has to figure out the back end of their defense, and they are unafraid to kind of put Jair Brown on notice, which is good. Really, really, really good. Lori Matthews says, losing Jimmy Ward was a big loss, but he didn't want to be there. That's true. I also think Jimmy Ward would have stayed had San Francisco not forced him to play nickelback. Now, at the time, it was a need. Jimmy Ward's a team player, and I 1,000% miss him playing on the back end of this defense. But, man, this team needs a player like him. I think Marquis Siegel can be that for them, but I think it may take a little bit of time for him. I'm not super high on him, but I do think there is a good potential there to become a starting caliber player, maybe in year two, maybe even in year three, but I wouldn't assume year one. He is feisty, though, so maybe I'm counting him out too soon in year one. But I do want to move along and talk about this team's first-round pick, Mykel Williams, because when I tell you I liked the pick on draft night, was a big fan of it. When things got down to, who you're going to pick a couple of days prior, that was where we all leaned on the show. If you're watching 95.7 The Game's draft night coverage, you can hear me and Mark Grandy gushing about Mykel Williams. If you listen to our post-draft show on this very channel. You can hear me gush about Mykel Williams. I think he fits what they want to do defensively so much and so well. But seeing Mykel in person and seeing Mykel man, he's a big dude. He's lengthy. He's strong. And I can tell you this, when you watched his tape at Georgia, mainly this season with the Bulldogs, he wasn't the most explosive guy out there. Again, it was all power, right? It was power, it was length, it was just bull rush, go, 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 and just bulldoze guys over. I will tell you this, Mykel looks a little more agile than his tape indicated. Now, a lot of that is due to probably being healthy for the first time in a year. He hurt his ankle in the season opener last year and kind of played through it the entire time, which he himself said was a mistake, but maybe it led to him being drafted by San Francisco, so maybe it wasn't too big of a mistake for him. Almost went inside the top 10, so it worked out for him. That said, Mykel is awesome. Mykel, again, you have to play games and there's no pads on, but he is a man that looks like a boy. I will tell you that. And look, he is the reps when you watch him go against Colton McKivitz, which really isn't a fair battle for McKivitz because McKivitz doesn't do great against bull rush and power edge rushers, so Mykel does hold the upper hand there. But he beat him today. Would have had a would-be sack if that matters to you. But was even great to see was him and Trent Williams locking horns. Because we talked about a long time here on the show leading into training camp that battle, those two guys going head-to-head is going to be one of the most pivotal aspects of Mykel Williams' progression in year one. It was the same for Nick Bosa, and it will be the same for Mykel Williams, having a future Hall of Fame Gold Jacket player lock horns with him in the trenches, whether it's inside, outside, doesn't matter. Having somebody like that to glean and learn from is a big deal. I'm sure the exact same thing can be said for Nick Bosa and Joe Staley when he was in San Francisco in 2019. Granted, they had Buckner and Armstead and those guys, but Nick, was a really, 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 was a quick learner because Joe Staley. So you just look at Mykel and look at Trent and you say, those guys need to be talking every single day. I want Mykel sitting next to Nick and Trent during team meetings, getting in their ear, asking them questions. And funny enough, Mykel, which is ballsy as hell, asked Trent Williams to use his private plane to travel to Cabo. Like, all right, dude, like, he was already going there, so he was like, I might as well, but like, if it was me, I would have been like, Trent's kind of scary. So, good to see that Mykel is unafraid. Hopefully he can take his hopefully he can take his what am I trying to say? Hopefully he can take his strength, I guess, or take his boldness is the word I'm looking for, and translate that to the actual football field, because I couldn't imagine asking Trent as a rookie, can I borrow your plane to go to Cabo? But Trent, which is great to hear even more of, he gushed about Mykel today in the post-practice press conference. And look, Mykel's been playing inside and outside during the first couple of days of camp, which is probably what we were going to see during the year. At least that's the projection for him to kind of be the Eric Armstead archetype for this defense. But Trent went kind of the other way with discussing Mykel. He said he's more like DeForest Buckner. Now, it wasn't a one-for-one comparison, but he said the way they play, the strength they have, now one being a defensive tackle, one being an edge rusher, differentiates them. But, yeah, I was like, whoa. I really wouldn't think of DeForest Buckner being the pro comparison or one to be compared to Mykel Williams. I'd more say Eric Armstead or somebody else like that. But Trent's never really afraid to praise young players, which is good. He doesn't do it often. So when he does it, you go, oh, okay. He'll praise Brock. He'll praise Debo and Kittle and those guys, but you are 2 days into camp, and he's already gushing about Mykel Williams. The other guy he's gushed about was Drake Jackson. Now, Drake Jackson had a lot of injuries and a lot of poor usage at USC, or at USC, excuse me, that really affected, I think, his body and how long it could actually last in the NFL. But Trent was praising Drake and his strength and his athletic ability, saying he's built like an all-pro. And even today, Trent did the same thing for a player like Mykel Williams. Listen here.
Mykel's a huge dude, man. Generally don't see guys that size on the edge. So, it sucks having base block guys with arms, long as your legs. But, I think he has a chance to be a really good player in this NFL. I think he has a chance to be dominant. He has the best coach in the league pushing him. Get to learn from some of the best guys to learn from, obviously Nick. So I'm happy to see how he turned out. I think he got all the tools to be an all-pro.
When you hear Trent Williams say he's a pain to go against, now he's talking about the archetype, the long arms, those kind of guys, but to get that kind of praise that early into training camp from Trent Williams, of all people, he's a pain in the ass kind of to go against, that is worthy of talking about more than just 2 seconds of, Trent praised Mykel. No, that's a big deal. And I think, Trent, again, is a pretty positive player for the most part. Isn't afraid to praise young guys, but it took Drake Jackson a year to get that stuff. It didn't work out for Drake Jackson, but my point more so is that to get it this early, the timing of the praise really matters. So if you're giving a player like Trent Williams of the Hall of Fame caliber fits, or kind of pissing him off of having to play and go against you, imagine what he does for lesser tackles, lesser guards around the league once he can grow. So really, really, really good things to see from a young player like Mykel, reaping praise and getting praise and receiving praise from Trent Williams. Aaron from 49ers First Takes coming in hot with the $5 super chat. Aaron, you are more than kind. Go watch Superman again for me if you can and save your $5 next time. But Aaron says here, I am all in on the Niners not doing their due diligence and just signing defensive tackle Christian Wilkins, I think is what you meant, Wilkins on a whim, ... Not. If you don't know what Aaron's referring to, the Las Vegas Raiders released defensive tackle Christian Wilkins today. There's been some back and forth with the foot surgery or the injury that he had. He broke his foot, and there was a pretty serious recovery process for him. There were some issues with the rehab where the Raiders weren't happy, then he wasn't happy, and now there's a grievance being filed, and the Raiders want to get their money back, and they cut him. So it'll be a long legal process for him. And on top of that, the NFLPA doesn't have a president or a leader right now, so it's all up in the air, and maybe that's the Raiders kind of picking their timing wisely for them. But Aaron, thank you for the super chat. But yeah, for as great as it might be, for as...
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Darn you say, like, what a dream scenario for San Francisco if they can get Christian Wilkins for fairly cheap, knowing if he can save that money he's about to lose if his grievance with the Raiders is lost, or excuse me, the Raiders' grievance is won. He'll lose a ton of money, the entire contract voided, I believe. But if they can get him on a whim or a 2-year deal for cheap and have him kind of rebuild his stock and get healthy, I wouldn't say no. Now, again, how healthy is he? That's the big question, because when he's healthy, he's one of the best defensive tackles in football. That said, it does seem like San Francisco, who they'll tell you, hey, we looked into it, didn't want to do it. They're trying to save their money, really trying to save your money, or their money, excuse me, not my money. They can care less about mine, your money. They want mine and your money when you go to games. Hence why you should use the promo code 49ersaccess at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. But I don't see the San Francisco 49ers being in the Christian Wilkins sweepstakes. That said, you're probably going to see teams like the Chargers, maybe the Rams. Wouldn't be shocked at all to hear about teams like the Bengals or the Chiefs or even the Ravens. I think Wilkins fits in the AFC more than the NFC, or at least there are more teams that would like him. Maybe a team like the Lions want to target him because their defensive line's pretty slim right now. But that said, you're right, Aaron. I don't see it happening at all. But it would be great if he's healthy, because he is. You put Collins and Watkins and it is, wow, CJ West, you'd be, beef galore, brother. And we love beef on the show, I'll tell you that one. Lori Matthews asks here, what do you think happens with that? How often does an organization win something like that? Nothing directly comes to mind when it comes to an organization winning a grievance against a player. Maybe a smaller grievance here or there. Maybe one just kind of going over my head that I can't remember. But with the amount of money that Christian Wilkins signed for, I believe they are 1-2 years into that deal. So I think they're a year into that deal, or going into year 2 of that deal. So it's a bad look for sure. And I think the Raiders are trying to be a little sneaky and capitalize on the lack of leadership currently in the NFLPA right now. I'm not sure if the NFL will want to work things quickly or not, but it's a sticky situation to be in. I would say the odds the Raiders win that are 50-50, maybe 40-60. The NFL usually doesn't like screwing over their players, especially if the NFLPA is going to make a stink about it. And you're having one of the highest paid defensive tackles in football now, maybe getting nothing off a contract he signed a year or two ago. So I don't think Las Vegas wins that, but you never know. The NFL is kind of in a weird situation leadership-wise. There's guys in and out. Again, the NFLPA, lost their president and stuff. So I think it was a strategic decision to cut Wilkins now because the Raiders know we can capitalize on this, but maybe that's me just being a Raider hater for whatever reason it is. But also, I hope Wilkins can get healthy. Like, that's the important part. Get healthy. You want to see talent out there to hopefully whoever he plays for, please, not the Cowboys, please, not the Rams, please, not the Seahawks or the Chiefs, but he's a great player when he's healthy. And I was really, as a non-Raider fan, looking forward to watching Max Crosby and Wilkins and the rest of those guys, with Pete Carroll, but it's not going to happen this year. But that's enough for the Raider talk today. Silver and Black can go ahead and get themselves back out there to the scorching heat in Las Vegas, because you have to wrap things up on the show today. So tell me what you think down below. Do you think Isaiah Neyor can win a position on the San Francisco 49ers 53-man roster? Are you excited to watch him once training camp days progress or when preseason comes? Are you hyped up on the Dee Winters train? And are you with me in thinking Trent Williams' praise of Mykel Williams has gotten me ready to blow a freaking gasket for how excited I am to watch these guys in year number 1? Or do you have any concerns down below? Bryce Huff not with the first team yet through 2 days. Is that concerning? Alfred Collins not with the first team through 2 days. Does that concern you? Do you have any concerns? Are you intrigued by the safety battle? Who do you think wins that down below? Don't forget to follow us on social media at 49ers.access is the Instagram. 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. I want to thank 49ers first takes, sorry, Aaron. Bobo and Lori Matthews all in the YouTube comments. I want to thank all the listeners out there. if you can, use that promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave us that 5-star audio podcasting review. And until tomorrow, training camp day number 3, my name is Sterling Bennett. And as always, stay faithful.